Welcome everybody to the second leg of the Eubank Jr versus Benn press tour. On Tuesday we were in Manchester. Tonight we're right here, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where these two will square off for real on April the 26th. Demand for tickets via pre-sale has gone through the roof. I'm Andy Clark. Joining me, I've got Matt Macklin and Sonny Edwards. Now then, chaps. Tuesday was interesting, explosive, some might say. if you'll forgive the pun. Actually, don't forgive the pun. There's plenty more where that came from.
30 seconds. 30
There's
seconds.
plenty more where that came from. Matt, me and Sonny were working on it together, so we had a good chat afterwards. What did you make of it, watching on?
I mean, it didn't shock me. You know, one thing about Eubank, you could see he was up to something here. You could see, you know what I mean? Leaning in, he's going the other side. I don't know. Some people are, you know, disgusted by it. I thought it was pretty funny. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it was only an egg. Do you know what I mean? It's not like nothing's really happened. No harm done. I mean, someone said, "What if one of the shell of the egg got in his eye?" And that, and I said, "Well, what are the chances of that? You'd have to be pretty unlucky for that to happen, wouldn't you? You've got more chance of getting tarmacked if you cross the road." So, you know what I mean? Look, everyone's talking about it. You know, whether they thought it was funny, whether they thought it was out of order, whether they thought it was inappropriate, whatever. Everyone is talking about it, and I'm guessing that was the whole point. And probably a little bit of one-upmanship and a bit of like, just getting that last, you know, that sort of like getting underneath his skin, isn't he?
Yeah, completely. It's a double whammy in that sense. And yes, it is a risk. It is reckless, because if security don't get involved as quickly as they did, then they're basically going to start fighting on the stage, and anything could happen, and the fight could be off. It could be in danger. So, as you described it, Sonny, it was a liberty. It was pre-planned. I do find myself enormously entertained by the idea of Eubank at some point during the afternoon just dropping a few eggs in his pocket in preparation for it, knowing what...
premeditation of it is almost funnier.
Exactly. Now, the question I have is, does Benn now have to do something today?
I mean, you'd think so. I mean, if 48 hours ago, the fighter that I was fighting, I don't know about you, Matt, but if the fighter that I was fighting in a couple of months smacked an egg round my face, the only thing that would be on my mind is how I'm getting my get back this evening. I don't think I would have rested. I would have fought outside the box. I would be trying to find a way to make it at least level, because right now I would feel like I was one down. And it seemed like it was so unexpected. And like you said, it's like Chris dragged him in, took his attention away, had him speaking to him, having leaning in, having what you saying. Then all of a sudden you see him pull out of his hand. Thank God it was in his left hand. Otherwise, we might not have a fight right now. You know what I mean?
Well, I suppose, like Sonny's kind of saying there, he'd have to get it back. It's that one-upmanship, isn't it? You don't want someone to kind of have that over you. Like they got it over you, but like sometimes the best way to win is not to play. You know, especially if you're playing a game that someone else is better at, or certainly more experienced at. Maybe you're better off just doing nothing. We've seen it with, remember, Frotch and Groves, and the first fight, Frotch got into that game with Groves, and Groves had the better of it, didn't he? And it affected his performance, where I think in the second, the rematch, he just blanked it. And maybe that's probably what Benn, because Benn's quite emotional, doesn't he? He gets upset. And, you know, Eubank, who's constantly prodding and poking and trying to wind him up, a bit of a wind-up merchant, he might be better off just not playing that game. And
we see Benn arriving there. You saw the lining of the suit, the poster from the first Benn Eubank fight. We saw Chris Eubank arriving. I wonder, will they frisk him for eggs on the way to the stage? Who knows? You know, security are here in force. Let's just do a little...
those electronic things.
Let's do a little bit of analysis on that first press conference in kind of boxing style, because Eubank came out, didn't he? And he wanted to take the centre of the ring. He immediately said Benn should swap seats with Eddie Hearn. I'll swap seats with Ben Shalom. He immediately tried to shut Eddie down. He wanted to run the show, didn't he? He wanted to get into a rhythm and run the show. And how successful was he at doing that, do you think, Sonny?
I do think he did a good job, to be honest. I think he did a good job of rattling the whole table, especially the other side of the table. You saw some energy from Eddie, definitely. I know he didn't like it. basically being told to shut up before the press conference has even started, to be honest. I thought it was a good point Chris made. I don't know why the promoters were closer than the fighters. So he came on a good foot straight away, and I thought that sort of helped roll his confidence. I do think a couple of times he was just speaking to speak. I think he lost the track of where he was going with it and then had to bring it back. But I think he did a good enough job at doing that. I think a lot of what he said was hard to answer for Conor, if I'm being completely honest. You know, when we're talking about the scandal, the drugs testing, eggs, there weren't much he could say. I think Ben Shalom kind of made points that he didn't need to, talking about, the rematch clause, but then accepted that it was, you know, Chris Eubank and Ben that asked for the rematch. So, I don't know, it just seems like a really well-situated, both teams, both sides, both platforms, everyone's got their back up a little bit, and I think it was genuine. How many times we stood here and deep down we're questioning, do these two really like each other, or are they just doing the showmanship? I don't think there was one bit of showmanship. I think it's raw emotions. I think it's agitation and aggression towards each other, and I don't think we'll be here in an hour and not talking about something just as big, if not bigger, than the egg. That's where I think we're at, but I might be wrong.
No, well, you could easily be right. So, Matt, in terms of Conor Benn, he kind of, in boxing terms, hung on the back foot a bit more and looked to counter-punch. And he did it quite well, I thought, because every now and again he'd say, no one cares, Chris, you're boring, Chris, just kind of offsetting him, and then did land the odd big blow when he said, you know, even your dad doesn't like you. And then when Chris went in with the failed drugs test, he said, listen, I've been cleared of them. You can't be cleared of being a, and I won't say it. But those were good, solid shots, weren't they? I thought he, you know, his game plan was fairly sound.
Yeah. Listen, they were giving as good as they were getting there, swapping verbals. It's all fun and games, obviously, and when it comes down to it in the ring, that's what really matters. But certainly in terms of yesterday, you'd have to say that Chris Eubank Jr. was dictating the terms. He was taking the initiative, and it reminded me when you're at an old amateur boxing show and all you can hear is, be first, be first. Well, he was certainly first, wasn't he?
He definitely was, and I think he wanted to isolate himself one-on-one with Ben. That's why he wanted to shut Eddie down. He reckons himself to be a slicker talker than Conor Benn, but Conor Benn, like I say, I thought he did pretty well. I felt like Eddie Hearn really wanted to try and get himself a one-on-one with Ben Shalom if he could. I mean, they nearly actually had one right at the end there after the incident at the face-off. But if you're strategising for Team Eubank, with the best will in the world, is the best way forward for Ben Shalom a little bit less might be more? Because Eddie Hearn is a master when it comes to talking, when it comes to debating, when it comes to just tying people up in knots. You know, you don't really need to go down that road. No,
I think you've got to box to your strengths, and you got. I mean, Eddie Hearn's a fantastic talker. So's Eubank Jr. You know, kind of Ben's good talking in a different way. Like I say, he heart on his sleeve, gets a bit over emotional, but that's why people love him. I don't think Ben Shalom's been in the game long enough. He ain't seasoned enough or schooled enough to mix it with those guys in that game. Not yet.
Especially not just yet, yeah. And I agree with that. And I think if we just look at numbers, look, when I was first coming into the pro, there was no Ben Shalom. There was an Eddie Hearn, though. And since then, Eddie's probably done what? 15, 20, 25 boxing shows a year? All the way from next-gen shows all the way to the biggest events around the world in that any given week. And when you have that much experience, when you have that much dealing with fights over and over again, all the little nuances that can come around a fight differently, when you have a Ben Shalom who's probably done 5%, maybe 10% of the overall events that Eddie's been involved in, when it comes to, you know, getting out and measuring it on that stage, there's only going to be one person with the knowledge, the experience, the network, the connections, the history of what not to say and at what point not to say it. And I think, if I'm perfectly honest, and I do like Ben, and I do think he's good for the sport, I just think sometimes the effort of trying to prove that he's at the level is every time that highlights that he's not yet.
And less is more, and sometimes, like I say, the best way to win those games is not to play it.
Yes, indeed, but you've got to love the fact that he's prepared to go toe-to-toe with him. He wants to go there because he has to back himself. He absolutely has to. The teams are slightly different on the top table behind us. So Team Eubank's the same. Eubank Jr, obviously, Ben Shalom, Ronnie Davis and Jonathan Banks. Poor old Jonathan Banks was sat at the end there on Tuesday, not knowing what was happening. They actually
really put him back on the...
Yeah, he's still there.
Hey, no, I don't know if this is just me, but after what he did last time, wouldn't you just say, oh, you just sit this one out? You got asked a question and he didn't answer it and he didn't say another word before or after. I think that, I don't know, there probably could be someone better to sit in the seat.
Well,
let's hear something. If you're going to sit on a press conference table, give us some press. If not, sit in the pews, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's what I think anyway.
The reality is he's probably not familiar enough with the whole back.
No, he isn't. How can he be?
No, so, you know, and even the one-liners, and I agree, I think it's only, you know, maybe he just better. If I was Jonathan Banks, I think I'd probably rather just, unless I'm going to contribute, I'd probably rather just sit it out.
Don't get me wrong, I really liked how he was as well. I'm just saying, if you're going to be like that, leave the talkers up on the table talking, and especially after you did it the first time. You don't need to be. If he does the exact same thing again, I'm going to be sat there thinking, why was he up there? You know what I mean? It made no sense.
The other team was slightly different. So on Tuesday it was Eddie Hearn and the two Benns, Connor and Nigel. That's the same, but Tony Sims is here today as well, which that's the trainer aspect basically. Tony won't say loads. He won't get drawn into anything. The only bit on Tuesday where kind of civility broke out was when Nigel Benn said to Eubank Jr, listen, I did say a little while ago that I hate your father. I don't. I just want to say that I'm sorry, I want to apologise for that. And Eubank himself said, look, I don't even really want to hear apologies. Everybody was right at it on Tuesday. The vibe and atmosphere backstage, from what I understand, was edgy beforehand, but particularly afterwards. And Eddie said to us on stage, if you see Nigel Benn tonight, then you're going to need to run in the opposite direction because his temper was really up. That would have been the same that evening, probably the same yesterday. They were supposed to do a face-off yesterday, and that got canned, which is understandable. They're going to go out on the pitch when they've finished saying whatever they say to each other up there. But I think there's going to be a fairly heavy security presence because we can't have them that far away from each other again today, can we?
No, because look, what happened yesterday was harmless. Nothing happened. But like you say, if all the security hadn't been there and then emotions run high, tempers get lost, someone throws a punch, you know, breaks someone's nose or jaw or teeth, like that, you know, all of a sudden the fight's in jeopardy and might never happen. So, yeah, you have to be sensible about these things, and you've got to. There's no point being wise after the fact, hindsight. You've got to have a bit of foresight. We know what happened Tuesday, so we've got to, you know, put the right, I don't know, restrictions in place, or you've got to cater for what could happen and make sure they don't get too close to it, or make sure there's a heavy security nearby that can at least get in quickly if that does happen.
I'm just picturing, you know, Chris in one penalty box, Connor in the other, give him a megaphone each. Just like, let's just make sure we get to the fight. As exciting as Tuesday was, the worst case scenario in anything like this is if that the gamesmanship and the one-upmanship carries on so far that now we haven't got a fight again, and that's the worst possible outcome in this. As much as it's a talking point, as much as it's exciting, controversy, let's get to the ring. Let's both get there in one piece because we all want to see this fight.
And let's be honest, I don't think this fight needs too much selling.
No, it doesn't. And the galling thing for Conor Benn will be the fact that Eubank got in first. And we saw what happened on pre-sale today. 130,000 people in the queue for pre-sale for tickets. This place holds 63, 65. I've been here twice, once for AJ Usyk. We were both together for that. Fury Chisora. It is a brilliant place to watch the sport because the ground's nice and tight. It's close to the pitch. You've got that cop at one end. It's absolutely magnificent. But we were talking before we came on about an hour or so ago, Sonny, about things we've seen in boxing that have caused us to hit high alarm, high alert. And it was all over pretty quick the other day with Eubank and Benn. But it took me back almost to Lewis Tyson, where Tyson just stepped off that plinth and started walking towards Lewis at the press conference. And doing the job we do now, we know that there would have been loads of people backstage having heart attacks as soon as you see Mike Tyson walking across towards his opponent. So they've just got to make sure that there's no capacity for any of that.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot to lose for a lot of people involved, but probably none more so than the two fighters. This is genuinely that fight in both of their careers that they probably will never find another dancing partner like each other. There's not many other fighters that you can make the same weight at and fight that both of your dads were iconic British boxing legends that had a storyline that encapsulated the audience of the whole of Britain, really. Like nans and people that don't watch boxing knew about the Benn Eubank storyline. Everyone knew about the Eubank and Benn storyline, and they're carrying it on. And I think, like I said, and I'm repeating myself, as long as they both keep their heads and don't push it too far, then it's all fun and games. But the moment now, I don't know, someone's got an injury, or like you said, if a bit of egg goes in the eye and all of a sudden he's in the hospital because something sharp, like that, can, you know, as much as we think,
as unlikely as it is, it could happen.
Possible. Yeah. It's possible, and especially Chris, they're even heavier than now they're going to be when they fight each other. Chris hit him with a very heavy-handed egg in his hand. That could have went a lot of different ways. And like you said on Tuesday, I thought the security did a really, really good job at containing that to what it was. It was almost as if Connor was in on it, how well it was contained.
It was. You could say it was an existential crisis.
One more of those, I'm gone, that is.
Anyway, let's talk about the...
It was better than having egg on his face.
Very good, Maxine. I knew you'd get that in sometime. Let's talk about the backstory and the history a little bit, though, because we got into this on Tuesday, Matt, and what's so good about this fight is that if you're my age or a bit younger, like you, for example, you'll remember it the first time around. You'd have been like 8, I think, the first time around, so you will remember it. And if you followed sport, or even if you didn't, there was no escaping it. 4 terrestrial channels, radio, national newspapers, that was it.
Yeah.
So if you made it onto there, you were massive. Sunday night on ITV, I don't know what it did, 15 to 20 million, something like that. You stop anyone on the street, say Benn or Eubank, they'd have an opinion. So it just captures all age ranges are going to get sucked into this.
It's hard, if not impossible, for someone who's, I don't know, 20 years old today to really understand how big that fight was then, because they wouldn't understand what it was like to have lived through a terrestrial television era, where whatever was on terrestrial television was in the newspapers, and everyone read the newspapers because you didn't have that many media outlets, ways of absorbing information. It was on the radio, it was on everything. It literally, every single, like you said, even your nans were on about it. Oh, who won that fight? They knew. Do you know what I mean?
There was only so many channels that the attention could channel down. Now with the Zones, Sky, The Ring, you've got 101 different platforms just about boxing, so it saturates just in itself. And then, you know, when they was announcing and signing the fight, live on BBC from what I can remember, it's countrywide. It's, 6 o'clock evening news. Everyone's by their TV, and at this time there was 5 channels.
100%. Midweek sports special it was on when they signed the contract, and they wouldn't even look at each other. Find it on YouTube and watch it. It is incredibly tense. It's the kind of thing, again, that would give TV directors palpitations. So behind us, pretty much everybody has assembled. Team Benn, I can see all of them. Eddie Hearn, Conor Benn, Nigel Benn. I can see Ben Shalom. I can't quite see Chris Eubank Jr. just yet. Michael Buffer's pretty much ready to go. So we're not far away now. And when you look at them just kind of circling around just over my shoulder, you can see that there is a little bit of edginess, a few nerves there. Jonathan Banks just taking his seat. Conor Benn did say earlier today when he was talking to Sky, he was asked whether he planned to try and do something today, and he said, look, if I could get my hands on him, I will get my hands on him. But all I know is that on the 26th of April, I will legally be allowed to batter him, and that gives me great comfort, was how he described it, which is an interesting way of it's an interesting turn of phrase. Yeah,
like we said, it's back. It's that one-upmanship, isn't it? You know, you don't want someone that you don't like to have that one up on you, and he got it, didn't he?
Clean as well. It was a shocking moment, to say the least. You could even just hearing the sound of it, it was impact. It weren't just like a little push, a little like for the pictures. It wasn't that at all. It was executed. As soon as he thought about it, he done it as hard as he could. And look, they're getting on now, and I feel like you can just feel the tension in the room a little bit. I don't know if it's just me. I feel like every time someone's walking, all the eyes are going on them and everyone's tracking them.
He's probably needed the 48 hours to calm down, really.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, I think so. And Eddie said on Tuesday, you know, the face-off tomorrow, we can't do that. He said, I don't even know if there'll be a press conference on Thursday. And I thought, Thursday will be fine. You know, you're going to need to have calmed down a little bit since then. I saw Connor and Nigel arrive a bit earlier on, and you know, they were in good spirits, but it won't take long to take it back to that place. And Eubank's doing what Eubank does, which is he is making everybody else wait for him. The reality of the way this is organised is that everybody else will take their seats, and then Michael Buffer will introduce the two main fighters, so they're going to have to wait for those two in any case. But we've got two absolute pros at selling fights. It's something you were really good at in your career, Sonny, was making sure that people knew who you were. You worked hard at it, you knew the value of it, and you knew that it wasn't enough just to sit on the apron after a fight and say, well, I just leave it to my team and I fight the fights and I stay ready and I'm never going to badmouth anyone or call anyone out. You knew that that's not enough. You've got to get out there and drive your career, and these two, wow, they do that well.
Yeah, and it's just, if you can make the fight fans feel something, good, bad, otherwise, when they see the poster, when they see the promotion, they've already got that inside them, that connection with you. And then now the fight means something. They know both fighters, they knew their dads. All of a sudden, there's all the boxes being ticked, and then you have the fighters really making a good play at selling the fight and at making everyone's attention be captured. But you know, when all the boxes are ticked and there's this much at stake, the fight fans are in for a great night of boxing.
Okay, so Michael Buffer has taken up his position in the middle of the stage. So I think it won't be too long now before he makes the announcement. Here we go.
Good evening and welcome to one of the greatest venues for sports and entertainment in the world, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium here in London, England, where on the 26th of April, Saturday night, two fighters with bad blood between them, as we all know, Connor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. will face each other in a 12-round middleweight contest, the main event for a spectacular night of world-class professional boxing for your entertainment. And that will be the inaugural Ring Magazine promotional event. Now, their fathers fought each other two times, once for the middleweight world championship, and then again in a three-way split for the super middleweight championship of the world, and the family rivalry continues to this day. And it's all brought to you by Ring Magazine, along with SNK Corporation, famous for the legendary video fighting game Fatal Fury City of Wolves, with promoters Eddie Hearn for Matchroom Boxing and Ben Shalom for Boxer. Now, this event will be broadcast live worldwide on DAZN and also available in the United Kingdom and Ireland on Sky Sports Box Office. Now, seated behind me, ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of Matchroom Boxing, Eddie Hearn, CEO and founder of Boxer, Ben Shalom, the trainer of Connor Benn, Tony Sims, head trainer for Chris Eubank Jr., former heavyweight contender, Jonathan Banks, and trainer of both Chris Jr. and Sr., Ronnie Davis. And also seated, ladies and gentlemen, the former middleweight and super middleweight champion of the world, the Dark Destroyer, Nigel Benn. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring the fighters to the stage and to their seats for this press conference. First, former WBA Continental Welterweight champion with a perfect professional record consisting of 23 fights, 23 victories, 14 wins by knockout. He is the undefeated Connor the Destroyer Benn. And his opponent now coming to the stage and to his seat at the press conference. His record stands at 34 victories, 25 wins by knockout, 3 defeats. He's a former two-time IBO Super Middleweight World Champion and the current IBO World Middleweight Champion, and he is Chris New Generation Eubank Jr. Almost like being at Heathrow, isn't it? When you get checked like that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's turn it over to our host, who will be acting as referee for this press conference, Mr. Ode Oladipo.
Michael, thank you. I'm not sure if those scanners work for eggs, but fingers crossed we have no eggs today. I am happy that we are here. I didn't expect us to get here after the ending of the second press conference, but it is good that we are in the capital because this is something very, very special coming your way April 26th. Welcome everyone to the second press conference for the Ring Magazine inaugural event, Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn, which will take place at this magnificent stadium, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which isn't just a football stadium. This is one of the best event stadiums in the world. The biggest events here happen every single year. We've had boxing here before. Derek Chisora on the front row fought Tyson Fury here. Anthony Joshua fought Alexander Usyk. The NFL have been here as well, and the best from the music industry. Beyonce will be here in the summer, as will Kendrick Lamar, but the attention turns to boxing once again. We all know about the Benn and Eubank rivalry. It dates back to 1990, as Michael said, when Nigel Benn first locked horns with Chris Eubank Sr. The victor that day was Chris Eubank. He went on to win the WBO middleweight crown. 3 years later, they got it on again, this time a unification fight, this time in the super middleweight division, and it was a draw. We all hoped for a third one. That didn't happen. The baton has now been passed to the Sons. Finally, we get to see Benn versus Eubank again. Here we are, 32 years after their second fight. The unbeaten Conor Benn, with a record of 23-0, 14 knockouts, will move up in weight to take on the current IBO middleweight champion, Chris Eubank Jr., with a record of 34-3 with 25 knockouts. A fantastic undercard as well. Liam Smith versus Aaron McKenna. Anthony Yard will take on Lyndon Arthur again. Chris Billam-Smith versus Brandon Glanton. And my favorite fight on the undercard, Vidal Riley will take on Chev Clark, another Matchroom versus Boxer showdown. The event is being brought to you by Ring Magazine, SNK Corporation, the publisher of the famous video fighting game Fatal Fury, City of Wolves, Eddie Hearn of Matchroom Boxing, and Ben Shalom of Boxer. And the event will be broadcast on DAZN worldwide and Sky Sports box office in the UK and Ireland. When this fight was officially announced about 6 weeks ago, I remember Eddie telling me this will be bigger than when it was supposed to happen in the autumn of 2022. I completely disagreed. I didn't know if it could be bigger. Then the O2 pre-sale record was done. This time round, I think you probably all saw Eddie's tweet, the pre-sale record has been broken again. And this will be not just the biggest fight in the UK this year, undoubtedly that's fact. It'll probably be one of the biggest fights we've ever seen in the UK. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. All right, there are many people on stage. I want to run through this very, very quickly. I just want to quickly say hello to Jonathan Banks down there, Ronnie Davis, Ronnie, see, there you go, Ben Shalom, Chris Eubank Jr., Eddie Hearn, Nigel Benn, Conor Benn, and Tony Sims. Great to have you here as well, Tony. I want to start with you, Ben. This time we didn't really get to hear from you much last time. Again, an incredible event. You wasn't part of what should have been their first fight. How does it feel to be a part of this one?
Oh, it's incredible. I knew it was big when we got the deal done, but yesterday was special. I want to thank all the media, as well as the fighters. The media reception and pickup of this, every front page, every back page of every newspaper, it just feels big. It feels bigger than boxing. It feels bigger than sport. This is going to be the biggest event of the year. And it's Chris Eubank Jr. against Conor Benn. The first one felt like born rivals. This one, it's not to do with the dads anymore. This is about 2.5 years of rivalry, 2.5 years of controversy. And now we're here for one of the biggest events in boxing, the biggest event in British boxing.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I echo that as well, Sam. Not just in British boxing, I think one of the biggest events in boxing this year. Let me bring in Chris Eubank Jr., the champion. It's right that I speak to you first. They all say it's all fair in love and war, but did you cross the line at the end of the press conference on Tuesday with the eggs and the slap in the face?
Did I cross the line? I mean, you know, during this whole process over the last 2.5 years, I think many lines have been crossed. You know, I'm sitting up here today on a stage with two of the scummiest characters in boxing, in my opinion. A drug cheat and a man who did everything in his power to help him get away with it. So me throwing an egg at somebody who absurdly claims that that is the reason why he failed 2 drugs tests because of contaminated eggs, I think that's light, and I think that's deserved. He deserved the embarrassment of what happened. You know, if I had an opportunity to do it again, I would. Unfortunately, I come unarmed today. I've been thoroughly searched multiple times, couldn't sneak any in. But in all seriousness, this is a real fight. You know, this is going to be a bloodbath. This is going to be like the first fight between my father and Nigel Benn. It's going to be special.
Does that mean, following up from that last part, does that mean that more respect from you is now given to Conor Benn, considering that you thought this would be a bit easier, easy work, you famously said a couple of years ago?
You know, I've always respected every fighter I fought, bar one. You know, respect for me is reserved for fighters who are true, who don't cheat. If you cheat, I don't care how many fights you've had, how brave you are, how well you've done, I don't respect you. So no, there is no respect in this fight.
Eddie Hearn, let me bring you in. You've been here before, this stadium. You've packed it out, AJ versus Alexander Usyk. Does this one just feel a bit more different because of the spice between the two people?
Yeah, I think different and very personal. You know, you saw what happened.
Eddie, come on, Eddie.
Listen, you ain't sitting there dressed like that.
Come on, Eddie.
What I'll tell you is this.
What do you think
this is
has
the
changed?
first.
What
This
do
is
you
the
think has
first
changed
time.
in the last 48 hours?
What's changed? The first time I've heard you talk about the fight.
Nothing has changed.
What has changed is
I did not
we had
want to hear
130,000 people
There's
in a
no
queue.
speech. There's no speech you're going to make.
There's been a lot of speech.
in
I'll
my
ask you this: do you want to win this fight? Because I don't like. What desire have you got in boxing now? Honestly, what is this fight all about for you?
This fight is everything. This fight is it's career defining. It's groundbreaking. It means more to me than the money involved.
That's what I want to hear. Because I don't believe it and I didn't believe it.
Okay, well that's good.
Does it really?
What you believe is extremely irrelevant to me, my friend.
It's not, because I don't know if you want it anymore.
It doesn't matter what you do or don't know. Who are you? I'm here to speak to Conor.
Are you? Speak to him or?
Speak to him, taunt him, find out what's in his mind. Again, you said something absurd in the last press conference. You said this isn't the Chris Eubank Jr. show. Whose show is it? Is it yours?
No, I mean, partly.
No.
But I would say...
This show is nothing
it's
to
a
do with
partnership.
Chris, you fought for the IBO World title in a leisure centre. Shut up, man.
Okay, there you go.
Like, seriously, like, you're an idiot.
This is what I want to hear. I don't want to hear...
You're an idiot. You fought for the IBO World title in a leisure centre. That's like your greatest accomplishment.
But listen, I like what you said about Ben Eubank.
I've won the IBO 3 times.
And do you know what? I got offered it, and do you know what? I turned it down. It ain't a legitimate world title.
Okay.
It's hard, it may be hard for you to hear. You're an idiot.
Listen, I'll just reverse it. I love the fact you said Ben Eubank won. Fantastic. I hope you want to win this fight badly. What I will say is, the other day I feel like it was a bit of a blessing in disguise. Because
you're speaking for too long, Hearn.
No.
I don't want to.
You keep your mouth.
I don't know how many times I'm going to say it.
Well,
you're not going to get your speech
because in our conversation,
it doesn't matter any way you weasel your way in. I am not listening to your bullshit.
You don't have to listen.
I know I don't
just have to sit there.
No.
Yes, you do.
I'm not sitting here.
Yeah, you do. Anyway, to the media, a very important question.
You can keep trying to talk over me, but guess
Robert
what?
Smith.
It will not work.
This applies to you. This is important to you.
Ade.
This is important.
Control it.
I feel like we're here again with you.
Because I'll be here all day.
I will say, when I spoke to Robert Smith the other day, just so the media
I know how
could
badly
hear
he wants
me,
to make this press conference about himself.
Conor Benn
which is why he's seated
will fight under a British
in between me and
Boxing
Conor.
Board of Control licence.
Conor should be sitting where he is.
And we have carried that process
But I can
through.
talk
Very
over his
important to know.
bullshit for as long as you guys want. I am enjoying this. Trust
So am I.
me.
It doesn't
I can
matter.
be here all
Because you're
day.
going to get sparked out
You will
on
not
April
win.
26.
You will not win
Sparked
this.
out.
That's good.
Because you don't care anymore.
That's good.
You don't care anymore.
That's good.
Good.
Eddie, let's hear from Conor Benn.
There you
Conor,
go. Let's hear from Conor.
here we go, Conor. This is what you've been waiting for 2.5 years. Reaction to what happened on Tuesday. A lot of people haven't heard from you from what happened on Tuesday. I saw the rage in your face. Here you are now, just a few feet away from the man that did it. What's your thoughts?
Oh, the same. He's an idiot. He's an idiot. That's all there is to say to it, and I can't wait for him to get absolutely smashed to pieces April 26th. His own team don't even like him. Look at his team. Watch the press conference. His own team don't even like him. They're pretending. They're pretending.
Ben, you pretending, Ben?
Of course he is. He ain't even getting paid.
Connor, who's at the end there?
Shut up.
Who's at the end?
Listen, don't open your mouth, so I'll come over there and slap you, silly
You changed
bollocks.
that to you.
Sorry, Mum.
Who's at the end?
I thought it was Keith Connolly today. No?
No, it's
Sorry,
his dad.
I can't see. I can't see.
That's Nigel Benn, one of the best middleweights and
And he slapped you
middleweights this
too.
country's ever produced.
Sorry,
Eddie,
Mum.
very quickly, sorry to pause
I
it
don't know
very
if I'm
quickly.
allowed to talk, but go on.
The Ring
No,
magazine.
you are not
I'll
allowed
do
to
my
talk
best. Go on,
for the
I'll do
fourth
my
time
best.
tonight.
I'll do my
Very, very quickly, guys,
You're nice.
let's have some parliamentary procedure, please.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
Chris. Some parliamentary procedure.
Parliamentary procedure.
Parliamentary procedure. Eddie, the Ring magazine, I've been told, have a special gift for you.
From His Excellency, yes.
Is it from His Excellency? Someone's going to bring it up.
Today, where is it?
What is the gift?
Very nice egg.
In a Tottenham Hotspur bag as well.
Thank you, Douglas. How are you, sir? Thank you very much.
Is an egg.
I walked into His Excellency's today and he said this is going to be presented to you at the press conference. It's an egg.
If you guys want to hear something really funny, I don't know what this shit is, but, you know, this worm actually tried to put in my fight contract that I couldn't say anything negative about promoters.
Absolute rubbish.
During the press.
Absolute rubbish.
Can you believe
listen,
that?
You don't get sued by me. You're being
What a
sued
wet
by
bag.
other promoters.
This guy has built his
Not
whole
me.
career around talking shit about people, and then he's going to try
You
and
got
get
that well wrong.
so that I
You
can't
can
say
speak
anything
to your man
bad
on the
about
right
him.
about that.
That's
You
who
can
we're
speak to-
dealing with.
That's another thing you got wrong,
That's who we're dealing
as well as getting dressed today.
One of the big things, by the way, that's a present from the Ring magazine.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you.
One of the big things that came out of the first press conference was that there's a rematch clause put in this. I believe, Ben, you put this rematch clause in.
Can we please not go over this again?
Well, a lot of people didn't come on
It's boring,
Tuesday.
it's
A lot of people,
irrelevant.
Chris, didn't come on Tuesday. They want to
Everybody
know
heard you guys going back
why a
and forth
rematch
about
clause
rematch
is put in,
clauses.
Ben. Why was a rematch clause put in?
There is a rematch clause, and that's it. Let's talk about something exciting. In fact, I have something that's been bothering me for years now, and I'm gonna get it off my chest. The first fight, 20,000 people bought tickets, hotel rooms, plane tickets, accommodation. They planned a whole weekend around this fight. None of them were compensated by Eddie, Matchroom, Conor. Worse than that was the undercard. There were a number of fighters who went through entire camps, and camps are not cheap. You know, thousands, if not tens of thousands of pounds are spent on trainers, gym fees, nutritionists, physiotherapists. These fighters all paid for their camps. They lost all that money, and they were never compensated. And that's always bothered me. Obviously, I wasn't compensated for what I spent either, but that's neither here nor there. I just want to set that wrong right now and say that from my purse for this fight, I will be giving £50,000 to the fighters on that undercard to split between them.
I thought he was going to say each.
To cover some of the losses that they incurred. I don't need applause. It's okay. It's okay. I'm not doing this for awards. One thing I will say is that I hope
someone needed to.
Eddie and Connor both put up their own £50,000 because there were a lot of fighters.
Well, what we did was everybody fought instantly. So, but thank you, that's a lovely gesture. I'll let everyone know and just let us know where to invoice the 50 grand. That'd be beautiful.
You obviously won't be receiving any of it.
No, I don't need to.
The fighters on the
I don't need
undercard.
to, but I do think it's a lovely touch. Everybody fought immediately and they all, you know, got active. But I think that's a lovely touch. I'll go back over the card. I'll find out who was on. And I will get
You don't have to do any of it. I'm going to do it.
You won't, because you talk bollocks.
No,
you won't actually do it, because you're a bit... You won't, you won't.
I'm the one person in this room that does speak the truth.
Oh, leave off.
I'm the one person in this room that isn't worried about the repercussions.
Listen.
All your other fighters, you know, we can't say anything to Eddie, we can't say anything about Eddie because he controls the money. I don't give a shit.
Nor do I.
Well, that's good.
But that's a lovely gesture. So.
I know it's a lovely gesture.
Very nice.
Keeping on the subject of purses and money, many of you would have heard that Eddie boasting about this 60-40 split that he secured for his team and Connor and himself. Just an absolute lie, you know, which is not surprising.
Well, I thought it was 70-30, but then you said 60-40.
You said 60-40. The truth of it is, Uncle Turkey flew in and saved the day like the superhero that he is. This is Saudi's show. He called me, he said, what do you want to make this fight? I want it. Tell me what you want. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, I got to be a businessman here now. And any good businessman in any negotiation, they start with an aggressively high number. And then there's counter-offers.
Wow, what genius.
And there's counter-offers and compromises, and eventually you get down to the number that's agreed. So I gave him a diabolical number. You know, I gave him an inconceivable number. And he said, done. I'll send you the contract on Monday. And I'm thinking, fuck, I could have got more there. Could have got a little Lambo or
what you like,
or a couple of watches added in. But you know what? I was happy with the deal. I'm not greedy.
You're not greedy, no.
No, not at all.
Anyway,
the point of the story is there is no splits, there's no percentages. He didn't negotiate an amazing
I was only pulling your plonker. Why are you getting
Oh yeah, now it was just a joke, but before it was serious.
What we did, we got the number we were happy with.
That's
right. We got the number that we think provided value for His Excellency.
That's right.
The difference
there was no 60-40 split.
The difference between
so
you and Connor
lied to the public in front of everybody, and now I'm setting it straight.
He wants to beat you. Forget the money. This is not about the money for Conor Benn. This is only about the money for you.
No, it's not.
It is.
And again, why are you speaking to me?
Because you're speaking to me.
I'm speaking about you. I'm not speaking to you.
Now. You're so. Listen.
I don't want you addressing me.
I'm in your head rent free. All you do is talk about me.
I don't want to hear you anymore. If you lie to the public, I'm going to expose you.
I'm worried.
I am not one of your little puppets. If you say bullshit, I'm going to call it out.
Then if I'm doing that,
you lied about the 60-40 split.
You're going to get.
I'm setting it straight.
I think it was better than a 60-40 split.
No. Listen, you did a terrible job for your guy. We got everything we wanted.
You happy?
But the point is, His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, he owns the show, Saudi owns the show, they're getting the pay-per-view, the tickets, all of that stuff, and he's guaranteeing me and Connor our purses.
And
there's no split. Much.
And it's going to be the biggest fight in British boxing history.
Absolutely.
All down to you.
Yeah, well done. Well done, Derek Clapping.
Oh, thanks, Derek.
Thank you. Let's hear from someone that wasn't at the press conference on Tuesday. That's the trainer of Conor Benn, Tony Sims. Tony, you're the man that's got to get Conor ready to have the toughest fight of his career, get Conor ready to jump up a couple of weight classes. How confident are you that you can get the job done come April 26?
Yeah, it's actually nice to talk about boxing and the fight. And yeah, it's been a long time coming, and we started camp a couple of weeks ago out in Mallorca, and obviously we've come back for the press conference. But as you know, Conor's last couple of fights have been at 154. So the 160 ain't too big a jump for him. And he'll be in great condition on the night. And we've obviously got our game plan, and Chris has got his game plan. And as Eddie was saying, it's probably the biggest fight in British boxing. We all know the dads had 2 great fights. I was actually at the second fight at Old Trafford. I was friends, obviously, in them days with Nigel. I remember the build up to that fight, the atmosphere that brought, and I believe 30 years on, the atmosphere and we're all looking forward to such a great night, and I think it's going to be an absolute fantastic fight. Conor's going to bring that ferociousness to the fight. You know, he's a carbon copy of his dad. Chris has obviously got the experience and a bit of weight on him, and he's a carbon copy of his dad as well. So I think we're all in for a great night of boxing.
Let's stay on that side. Let's welcome in Nigel, Ben. Nigel, obviously, look, you're fully confident your son can get the job done, but you know more than anyone.
100%. I don't see it going past 4 rounds. And where, like, you know, they say, like, Conor's jumping up 2 weights. Conor walks around at 12 stone. I know my son. And if Liam Smith gave him the problem that he did in the first fight, that's Liam Smith. He don't punch like Conor. He does not punch like Conor. And I know Conor can do 12 rounds. Me, personally, like I said yesterday or Tuesday, I said I'm more confident in this fight than I had with me and Chris Senior. I just think that Conor's just going to go out there, mate, and just give it to him, put it on him. And I know he would do that. I'm 100% confident in Conor doing that. I'm so relaxed, so sure. I know what my son can do. He's actually the best, a much better fighter than me. I could never box like Conor. I was just going in and have a bang. I just want to have a war. But Conor's got all them in his locker, mate. Every single thing. I'm so confident. I don't see it going past 4 rounds. And it's not even 4 rounds. It's like when Conor catches him. So it could be round 1, round 2. I don't see it going past 4 rounds. And that's my opinion. And that's what I believe. I know what my son can do. And he fights bigger guys inspiring than him that are hard. I just know my boy, and I'm so confident.
Conor, your whole team's confident.
Nigel, just before we move on, I got to just say something.
Yeah.
You know, I understand the frustration and the heat that you were experiencing a couple of days ago after I egged Conor.
Yeah. I didn't know. I thought you actually glassed him, mate.
I understand.
And that's why I nearly got my hand around your throat.
I understand.
Yeah.
But you did put your hand on my neck.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a pass because of what happened, but I'm just letting you know if your hand ever touches me again, you won't get it back.
Shut your fucking mouth. Do you hear me?
No.
Do you hear me? Threaten my dad.
He couldn't.
Hey, silly bollocks. Threaten my dad again. Watch what happens to you.
Yeah.
I'm not threatening him. I'm just letting him know.
No. Do you hear what I said? Do you hear what I said?
There's no touch.
Do you hear what I said? Well, he did get his arms around your neck.
Con, leave it. I got it, mate. I can handle this, mate. I'm old school, mate. I had this with his dad. I'm old school, mate. So this is not a problem. I understand, and I apologise for doing that, mate. I really am sorry that I've done that. You know what I mean? You put your hand on my son.
Yeah, because we are fighting.
Dad, he's just upset because his dad don't like him.
What?
No, he's just upset because his dad don't like him.
Yeah, I know.
He can't be. Shut your mouth.
Nobody else.
Shut your mouth. Your dad don't like you. You understand? No. You're just jealous. Just admit it.
I'm here.
Just admit it. That's it.
I'm ready to go.
That's it. Look at your team. Dysfunctional.
Yeah, Con, you know what it is? I think at the end of the day, like I said, it's like he's poked the bear. I just know what's going to happen. Listen to me. I'm telling you, this does not go past 4 rounds.
Okay, we got it.
I'm telling you, no, you're going to be done. For sure, 100% sure. So confident in what my son can do.
Conor, your team's obviously full of confidence. You're the man, though, that's going in the ring, jumping up a couple of weight classes.
Oh, they ain't really got anything to say. This whole thing is just getting on my nerves, to be honest. I ain't got nothing to say. There's no question you can ask me. Eubank, I can't wait to smash your head in. April 26th. I can't wait to smash your head in.
Mission.
Listen, I've heard enough of your voice talking shit this whole time. Again on Tuesday. Just shut your mouth. April 26th, you're getting your head smashed in.
I can't wait, my friend. I can't wait.
All right, let's get a couple of final words from Ben. Shalom. Ben, here we are. It's the big one. Again, we didn't even need to do this press conference. I feel like the event's sold already. The tickets tell us it's sold already. But again, we are so close to something so special.
Yeah, it's crazy. Honestly, 130,000 people in the waiting room. I've never seen it on a pre-sale. The biggest event this year. I do have to question when Eddie says they didn't do it for money. They had an opportunity to fight for a world title. It's clearly for money. It's clearly a cash out. It's clearly 2 fights. Probably the last 2 fights of Conor's career. But this will be the biggest fight we've seen in the past 2 decades, whether people like it or not, in British boxing. And that's what it's about. And as I say, I have to thank the media. I have to thank everyone that got behind this event, because this is special. And on April 26th, we're going to see something that we've not seen before.
Eddie, I can always tell from the media turnout just how big an event this is. You've been involved in some enormous events. This must be right up there with some of the biggest you've done.
I'd like them to do it now.
Eddie. Come on, Eddie.
I'll tell you what.
Well, you know what's going to happen.
Go on, you try. Go on.
Just don't say anything.
Okay.
Just ignore,
I'll say this.
Ignore Ade.
I wish you could do it now.
Okay.
Now.
Good.
Out there.
That's
now.
enough. That's enough. That's
I'm
enough.
going to enjoy every minute.
Let's not get excited.
I'm too excited. Too excited. It's going to be sweet as a nut. Thank you.
I feel rude if I don't ask Ronnie Davis a couple of words. Ronnie is sat on the top table. You've experienced this type of animosity with their fathers, exactly the same. What does it feel like when the sons are showing this type of attitude as well?
It's no different to me. First of all, I was privileged to be in the first fight they had, which was electric. I'd never thought I'd be privileged enough to do it again with the sons. It's unbelievable. It's going to be a great fight. May the best man win, which I know will be Eubank. No disrespect, Tony Simmons, Nigel, Conor. He's too big for you, mate. He weighs...
Davis, don't start with that big talk. I've told you multiple times.
Right, well,
I'm too good. You've got to tell him I'm too good. Come on.
Let me rephrase it, will you? Anyway, he's too good for him. He's too fast. He's too hard. He's too clever. Eubanks is brilliant, and he's going to smash Ben. How's that?
Come on. That's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Jonathan, I know you don't say much. I know you don't even want to be on the top table, but I've got to ask you, any final words, Mr. Jonathan Banks?
I never said I didn't want to be here, but I've been a part of a lot of fights, and as far as British guys fighting each other. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a big fight, and as it's been repeated over and over again, both guys can't wait to get their hands on each other. And me personally, I'm looking forward to it.
Should be a cracking fight. Remember, tickets go on general sale tomorrow at Ticketmaster.com midday. The fight will be live on DAZN worldwide and in the UK. No, Derek, no questions. And we'll be live on Sky Sports Box Office in the UK as well. Okay, one question, Derek.
You can't ask Eddie a question. You know that.
What a shame. Sorry, Derek. Apparently you can't answer me a question.
He doesn't have permission to talk in my presence.
You like this one, yeah? You're so confident that your fighter will win. You're so confident that your fighter will win. You guys might want to make a bet on it, a 100-gram bet on it.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
100-gram bet?
Thank you for earning me another 100 grand. I appreciate it, Derek.
We will do. We'll do it.
You ain't earning nothing out of the show, Ben.
Connor, I think I'm earning more than you, mate.
You definitely ain't, mate. You ain't earning nothing. I know you ain't earning nothing.
I've seen your deal, and I think I'm earning more than you. So just be careful, mate. I'll show you what I'm earning.
Nothing, no.
Right, the fighters are going to do a face-off on the stage. Hopefully the security are ready for this one. But thank you so much, everyone, for attending the press conference. And we will see you here April 26th.
Is he going to be on the pitch?
So here we go. I think these two are going to be kept apart here at a safe distance. That's exactly what it looks like. And I just wonder if one of these two might close that distance at any point. Security are poised and ready to go here, Matt and Sonny, but here he comes. Conor Benn just takes a step forward, and this reminds me of that Lewis Tyson situation we had a few years ago that we referenced earlier in the show.
Well, you don't want it getting out of hand here and then the fight ending up in jeopardy because someone gets injured. You know, they're on a platform there. It don't take much to twist your ankle or get pushed off or something. So, yeah, I think everyone just needs to be sensible here. I don't know if sensible is an appropriate word with those two when emotions are running this high.
You can see the fingers of Conor Benn twitching. I wonder what's going through his head right now. He's trying to get closer. He's trying to step closer and closer and closer.
He is just inching forward. Eubank, hands in his pockets, cutting a fairly relaxed figure. He ran the show, to be honest with you, there in the press conference. Conor Benn kind of let him. I don't think he was too bothered about it, but he did bite a little bit at the end when there was that contretemps between Eubank Jr. and his dad, Nigel. At that point, he got more stuck in. And Eubank looked to shut down Eddie Hearn as he had done previously. We didn't hear as much from Ben Shalom. Final remarks really from Ronnie Davis and Jonathan Banks. I thought he started very strong there, Eubank. His opening statement had some power to it. And Ben just pointing at Eubank. And the two of them have been split apart. So that passed off without incident, but you could feel the tension in the room. You could feel the tension in the room during the press conference, and it kind of veered between being quite light-hearted at times and quite comical to the next second the temperature would just drop, and the temperature really did drop when Eubank Jr. was talking to Nigel Benn, who would just apologise for putting his hands on him, and then Eubank Jr. made it known in no uncertain terms that was not to happen again. At that point, Conor Benn jumped in. It was interesting, wasn't it? It was entertaining again.
Yeah, and I mean, when it all kicks off and, you know, the epicenter's caught everyone's eyes, you forget that there's loads of little storylines going off the side. So I didn't know that Chris and Nigel had a run-in and he grabbed him by the neck and threatened him as well. And that was, you know, for a fighter that sat there with your dad, okay, yes, he was a legendary boxer as a dad, but still, for the person you're about to fight in just a couple of months, literally telling your dad, if you put your hand on me again, you won't have it back. There was something quite ominous about those words, I thought, and you can really see the bad blood and the tension just bubbling. Bubbling. I was surprised it didn't go over further, but at the same time, I think they just wanted to get their words across. More Chris Eubank, more Eddie Hearn, Ben Shalom. I don't think Conor Benn really minded to get too far involved into it. I think he's just trying to maintain his quite agitated and aggressive persona, and, you know, that is contradicted by someone that wants to sit there and yap of his mouth for half an hour. It's a juxtaposition. So I think Conor Benn played it well. I think he kept it down quite well. I think Chris Eubank, you know, again, orchestrated the action. I think him and Eddie are tremendous value going back and forward, to be honest. Had me laughing up here a few times at that press conference. And yeah, and I think they were bang on with what they said on the stage. The fight is already sold. Let's get there now.
Well, we were talking about this earlier, Matt, and Eubank loves winding people up. He's been doing it his entire career. He's good at it. He wants you to dislike him. And let's be fair, he's an easy person to dislike, isn't he? If you're on the other table to him, then it's not going to take an awful lot for him to get under your skin. And he did get there a bit with Conor Benn, but I agree with Sonny. I don't think Team Benn were too interested in getting embroiled in too much. He talked about compensating the undercard fighters for the original fight, which, as Eddie said, is a nice gesture and a good way to maybe just put on that cape of the good guy. He's talked about himself always being the bad guy. He said it on Tuesday, didn't he? I'm always the bad guy. Why am I always the bad guy? I think, by the way, they're making their way out to the pitch here at Tottenham Hotspur to do another face-off for the cameras, for pictures, basically. The floodlights are all on. It looks absolutely amazing. So we'll keep our eye on that. But yeah, Eubank's kind of a master at this.
I think he's always the bad guy because it's a role that becomes so natural to him. He's just so good at it, you know. But listen, I've got to say, lovely gesture for him to offer that money to pay for the fighters that lost out on the you know, the money they would have put into training camps, etc., when the fight didn't happen. So fair play to him in that regard. No, he didn't have to do that, and he did, so fair play to him. But
that's right, because my mate Lyndon is getting a little, a couple of thousand off Chris. I'm sure he was buzzing at home watching that, and he'll be on the undercard as well. So double whammy. Double whammy. Lyndon's killing it that weekend.
Absolutely, but that was nice of him. But also it was. I agree with Sonny. You got a couple of really good talkers up there in Eddie Hearn and Eubank, and it was more them battling it out really. And I think Ben had sort of probably flared up. I bet he was inconsolable on Tuesday night that he didn't manage to get hold of Eubank, and he's come down since then and probably thought, you know what, I don't want to get into it. But Nigel spoke well for his son. Obviously, Chris then, they were back and forth a little bit. But then, you know, Nigel, he's older, isn't he? As you get older, he's supposed to get more mature and wise. And he was able to just kind of come back down and apologise for his actions.
One thing I do think was genuinely interesting and kind of obvious is Chris Eubank never wanted to make a comment about Conor Benn's size, even to the point of every time his trainer has said, oh, he's going to win because he's bigger. He's made an abrupt point of like, no, don't say that. It's not just that I'm bigger than him, I'm better than him. And I think with the slap and, you know, all the drama and the history that we've been talking about, when I saw them on stage there just then, for me, it really showed the size difference. And I think that's kind of why Chris really doesn't want to be speaking about all the size. He doesn't want to draw any more attention to it because on the stage there, really, to me just then, it looked like a much bigger man against a much smaller man. But
it's a funny one because he's a bigger man. So he's been in there with George Groves, George was a big puncher at super middle. Do you know what I mean? He was a huge super middleweight fighter, and he hit Chris Eubank with solid shots
and a big guy,
and they bounced off him. He took them well, you know. But then you got Liam Smith, Liam's a great fighter, but he's not a big puncher. And he dropped him and really hurt him. So you do think going up in weight, coming back down, he's older. You know, maybe
I do think Liam can punch, though.
No,
I do think Liam's definitely up on the higher side.
Punches harder than his record suggests, but he's not a heavy.
I couldn't believe how confidently Nigel said that my son Conor Benn punches harder than Liam Smith. I don't know about more.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And I think again, Liam's
and it's accuracy in the way he breaks you down. Liam
not
Smith.
Only that, it's level of opposition that he's faced. It's you have to see it in a proper acid test. You have to see it in a proper gauge when he's fighting people that we know he's going to beat, know he's going to stop.
I suppose the point I'm trying to make, Sonny, is where Eubank Jr. always had solid whiskers, but he's 35, nearly 36 now. Those whiskers might not be so solid now. That punch resistance probably isn't what it was.
So we're just waiting for these two to face off on the pitch. Did this or a similar kind of scene with the rematch between Froch and Groves, and on that occasion Froch chose to give George Groves a pretty meaty shove. We had the egg detector at the start of the press conference there. That was quite entertaining, watching Eubank getting frisked by security as he stepped up there with the egg detectors. And then this is the last one, I promise. His Excellency presenting an egg to Eddie Hearn halfway through the press conference. That's it now, I'm done, I promise. But this is still quite tense, isn't it? They've done it up there. And Conor Benn just encroached a little bit. Nigel Benn still looks in absolutely
I was just going to say,
murderous
I can't wait for the show in Birmingham before the week before this. Easter Sunday. I mean, how many Easter eggs are going to be getting brought into the studio for that one?
Absolutely. Whittaker Cameron, two big grudge matches in the space of a few days. This by far the bigger one, and you can just see with the interest over the last few days how it's caught fire. I always gauge it by the amount of messages I get from people who never normally message me about boxing and how much coverage it gets in sports bulletins across different channels. I had a friend say to me yesterday, I heard your voice on the Today programme this morning, because they took some of our coverage and clipped it up and did something with it. And I just thought, wow, that doesn't normally happen. Boxing featuring on the Today programme, but that's where they've taken it, these two, because as characters, they gel well. You talk about styles making fights. These two styles they're perfect for everything, for this, for the fight, for the lot.
And this sort of fight does something that's so rare. People ask, what's the difference between boxing and football? Well, that football team has been there 50, 100, maybe 200 years. You was born into knowing about this team. You've seen the stadium every time you drove to school.
Family.
But now we've got our version. The two sons, two well built up, well with great achievement so far in their career, fighting after their dads built up one of the biggest legacies in British boxing, especially for a fight storyline, how it captured the attention. And, you know, they were born into this, like it was called Born Rivals the first time. But it's when boxing comes like this and you have a lifelong of storyline building up into the context of the fight, you're stepping out of that, I turned pro, and then I had to get everyone interested about me, and they saw me fight, and then they heard an interview, and then they liked me or didn't like me. This has come from generations, genuinely.
Oh, they were ready-made stars in terms of profile and exposure, especially to the casuals. You know, as a boxer, crossing over to the casual is the hardest part of building your profile, where they had that from the get-go.
Okay, so they're just circling around the halfway line at the moment. They came relatively close to each other, the two teams. There they are, Conor Benn on the right-hand side, Eubank just off to the left, and security just where they need to be, and they're inching closer to each other, and they're closer here than they were on the stage. Eubank, interestingly, just kind of setting a side on, because that gives you can soak up a shove. Well, you can soak up a shove if you're side on, can't you? What you don't want is to find yourself on your back. As I said, Carl Froch gave George Groves a shove at Wembley before the rematch. He's ready, Eubank, there, isn't he? He's ready for Conor Benn to do something. He's expecting him to do something. It's intense, this.
And I think Conor's trying to work out how he's going to get something in as well. Every part of his body language, he's edging a bit closer, his hands are there. You can see the tension in the security guards as well. They're really making sure that they keep them below the arm.
There'll be a level of adrenaline going there, won't there?
Absolutely. Heart will be beating, mouth will be going dry. You'll be trying to look in their eyes and not blink. You won't want to take any back step. You'll be thinking non-stop, a barrage of thoughts, that, you know, words that I couldn't even say live on stream, on broadcast. That their energy is going to be all the way up, even though they're going to be doing every bit of job possible to keep as calm and composed as possible in front of each other.
I do think that at the end of this couple of press conferences, this 3 days, that Conor Benn, not for too long, but he'll be frustrated that Eubank managed to get one in and he didn't manage to retaliate, because he was thinking about it there. You could see he was thinking about it, and Eubank was set. He was kind of expecting it. And that kind of does, as you've been saying, it illustrates the size difference there.
I was going to say, I'm just looking there, and Eubank looks a lot bigger, doesn't he?
Yeah, he really does. Now, I don't know if there's any instep heels in those boots he's got on or anything, and if Conor's just in flats and it's making it look a lot worse. But right now it looks...
The big question mark for me, Sonny, with Eubank is just what has he got left? That's the big thing.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't feel like he's completely fallen off a cliff. I think he's been in the ring with some tough opposition. I think physically he's always looked capable. Physically he's always looked fit. And I feel like, okay, yes, apart from the shot against Liam Smith, who I rate highly, by the way.
Oh, yeah, me too.
That hurt him, put him down, and he still got up and was, you know, discombobulated before he got stopped in his feet. Apart from that, he came back and he won the next rematch very, very convincing. And
Liam Smith's a brilliant fighter, but it's the fact that he took shots off George Groves once upon a time in his career, and then he got rocked by Liam Smith, who isn't as big a puncher as George Groves. And obviously, where he is in his career, and he's been up in weight and down in weight, you know, certain things go as you get older. Your punch resistance, your reflexes. Where are they now with him? We don't know.
It is more than anything with me. Right now, it looks like there's more size difference between them two than there is me and you, Matt.
Yeah.
And that's generally what I'm seeing on my screen right now.
Yeah, you need to ease off them puddings.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that fight against Groves, he was resolute in that fight. He was well beaten by George, but he didn't take a backward step. That was at super middleweight, as you say. He's gone up and down at middleweight. I saw him weigh in for his fight against Kamal Jeremeta in Saudi Arabia, his most recent outing. I think Conor Benn and Ben Shalom are having a discussion down there, and I know that Eubank had to work right up until the last minute to make the weight. That's not especially unusual, but it is hard work for him. We do know that, and it gets harder as you get older. So Ben, again, as I say there, he's having a word with, I think, maybe another one of the boxer team.
From what I could see, it looked like he was going on with Baz Arjo just then. The one in the middle, he was on the centre, the halfway mark right there next to Eddie.
They don't need to drag this out, and they're not. They've gone their separate ways. They'll leave their separate ways. The dressing rooms they had on the mezzanine just above us, one was one end of the corridor, the other one was the other end, because they don't want the two of them to run into each other, because look, we've had fun talking about the egg, and it is entertaining. And the press
Well,
conferences,
one more.
Come
the
on,
press
Anna.
conferences have been ecstasy. But at the same time, these are fighting men, as Tyson Fury would say, and you don't want to give them the opportunity to encounter each other in a set of circumstances where something could happen, because it might.
Because, you know, as a fighter, especially someone in Conor Benn's position right now, given the opportunity, he'll probably think a lot less of himself if he don't take the opportunity. He'll probably be thinking in a week's time or a month's time, why didn't I do something if I did have the opportunity? And it might dwell on him. So I think today we saw a lot of evidence of Conor trying to slide, get away with it, but then half give up on it, because you could see the time to do it was on Tuesday when no one was expecting it.
Exactly. So what does it look like for these two now? They're going into camp fairly shortly, and Eubank there. He just threw a fake there at Ben Shalom. He didn't do too badly there, Ben Shalom. If that was me, I'd have been on my backside, I think, turning around, running in the opposite direction. He gave some ground, but not too much, and a little bit of a smile and a chuckle between those two. They'll go into camp. It's April the 26th, the fight, so we're 2 months away, basically. They probably already started. But having this mini press tour at this stage, it's good timing, isn't it? Because it just really sharpens your focus when you're still, 8-9 weeks out. It probably, as much as fighters often don't really want to do this stuff, if you're going to do it, I feel like now is a good time for it.
Yeah, now's the time, because it's just giving you that extra. Not that I think either of them need the motivation, but then, you always need to remotivate yourself, don't you? Boxing training, it's hard and it's easy to put things off. So, yeah, it'll give them both a boost. Boost the hunger.
Yeah, and especially after you just spent a couple of weeks already maybe in that pre-camp. You've got a massive fight coming up. They already said Ben has started training in Mallorca, I believe they said.
Yeah.
Then when you take a break out of that hard work, this almost seems like a little bit of a holiday. A bit of a different one, because you've got a lot of, explaining to do and talking to do. But it generally feels like, you get down here, you meet your opponent, you look him in the eyes, and then when you go back to training, you've got the energy from here. You've soaked it up from this little interaction. I know that's how I always was when I fought.
I wonder, will we hear rumours and stories from camps and all that kind of stuff? Because sometimes people manage to keep it pretty much on lockdown. Other times things seem to emerge. You never know whether they're kind of planted there or not. But I just feel like this is the kind of fight, the kind of event where we may well have a bit of a narrative over the next few weeks, just to keep it bubbling away. They're not going to have any problem with the capacity here. We already know that. But in terms of pay-per-view sales, I feel like this could be big, and that people might just want to keep it there, just in the news feed somehow.
Look, it's sold out, I believe. The 130,000 people waiting to get tickets. What does it sell half? Does it hold half that? 65 maybe. So, I would imagine the pay-per-view buys are going to be huge. You could see Eubank there was definitely side on, wasn't he? I always think he was ready.
I always think that's a good plan, particularly on the stage like the one we have behind us, where you've got a raised stage that you have to stand on. If you just set your feet like you're in your stance, then if you feel like something's coming, then you can soak it up. And that just is what made me think that he felt like something definitely could be coming there. But I think you're right, Sonny. I think Conor Benn would kind of look at that and just think, I could do this now. I could do this now. If I decided I was going to, no one could really stop me. I'm too quick. But what you need is just to kind of bump into him in the corridor or something like that. But having said that, I'm not condoning that. And anyway, the event has passed off without incident. So now really we just turn our attention to the build-up itself, the build-up for real. And they've got the job on their hands of preparation. And as they were saying, as Tony Sims was saying, Conor Benn he classifies him as a 154-pounder now. Nigel was saying he walks around a 12 stone. I don't know if you remember, but we saw him. You would have seen him in the week of the fight too, but we saw him the week of the fight. We were in there doing a podcast, and he walked past. And I remember after we had a brief chat, I just said to you, wow, he looks great with the extra weight on, because he'd obviously done it right. And Nigel Benn, as you said, Sonny, he's super confident. Okay, what else is he going to say? But his belief in his ability to handle the size, he just doesn't feel like it's any kind of an issue.
No, Look, Eubank, look, he's physically bigger, and he's more proven in terms of the resume. The opponents he's fought, George Groves, Billy Joe Saunders, these people, you know, among others. But what he hasn't got on his side is youth. That kind of Benn's got the youth, and as you get older in boxing, and sometimes it can be absolutely minute fractions. Your reflexes slow down a little bit. You know what I mean? Your stamina's not quite as good. Your punch resistance, your ability to take a shot won't be as good. Your ambition and hunger isn't quite the same. That's just a fact. That's what happens to fighters as they get older. Conor Benn hasn't approached that phase yet. Eubank has. So it's hard to know where he is in that regard, how much of an impact that's had on him.
Actually, that's a really interesting point, and you're kind of perfect to talk about this, the pair of you, because you've always told me your final fight against Brian Rose, halfway through you sat on your stool and you thought, this is over, but I need to get through this one. We saw your fight against Galal and what you said in the corner, and you probably knew going into it that it just wasn't there anymore, but you can't pull out of the fight, and then you find yourself in that position halfway through where you're just thinking, I've just got to make the best of this. It happens, doesn't it? It can happen mid-fight almost, which must be a terrible place to find yourself. But at some point with Eubank, it will happen.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I agree with what you said. Like, once you've committed and you've agreed and you've got that sort of tunnel vision mindset for your whole career, I've accepted a fight, I'm now training for a fight, and that date's going to come and I'm going to get in the ring no matter what. Like, once you've sort of promised that to yourself, it's hard to deviate from that, even if you're not feeling 100%. What I think is going to be very interesting, though, if Chris Eubank Jr. is maybe, you know, the only time I've ever found a fighter not want to speak about the clear advantages in their favour is when they're trying to build the fight up to seem like more of a spectacle than it is. And it seemed almost as if Chris Eubank didn't want to speak about the size. He wanted to say, all right, it's because I'm better, it's not because I'm bigger. If there's an inkling in his head where he's overlooking Conor Benn and thinks all of the reasons why we think that Chris Eubank might win as to reason why he might win, if he goes in there without that eye of the tiger, without that bit of urgency or fear, you lose a 10, 15, 20% of overall performance. You lose it in camp, you lose it in sparring, you lose it on fight week. Now, if Conor Benn's coming in here with a lot of, you know, built-up feelings and emotions of a lifetime of emotions, and also from the outside looking into my eyes anyway, everything uphill for him. If he goes in now with that anxiety and that fear, but channels it to the best of he can, then that 10-15% swing either way might create a fight that none of us are really expecting. And I think that does often happen. And I don't know, the more I'm thinking about how Chris Eubank's almost playing him down, he's very relaxed, he's almost mocking him with the egg and then just standing there sort of serious in front of him on the next. I don't know, I think Chris really genuinely believes that there's no way he's going to lose this.
And I've always said to you, Andy, fear is a good thing. You want the fear. Fear makes you sharp. It makes those reactions go as quick as they should. When you're not, like I said, you can be we're talking fractions of a second between slipping a shot or getting nailed with a shot. So you want that fear because you want to be on high alert. You want to react quickly. And if Eubank is trying to talk him up because really he doesn't believe it is, but he wants people to think it's a bit a closer fight than it is. And you can't blag yourself either.
No,
you can't blag that fear. You know, you cannot blag that fear. If you don't really think this guy's got any chance of beating me, as much as I can sit there and go, he's a really good fighter and I know I'm up against it and I've prepared as hard. And you might have gone to the gym every day and you might have sparred the same rounds and you might have done the same runs. But if you haven't got that fear in your belly, you won't react quite as quickly. And like I said, we're talking fractions of a second. And that's the difference between getting hit with a shot or getting out of the way of it.
I think defeat for Eubank is utterly, utterly unthinkable. I think it is for the pair of them, but the unthinkable and the impossible are not the same thing. And come the 26th of April, one of them will be tasting that bitter, bitter taste of defeat. We will leave you with this face-off, the second we've had in 3 days, not as eventful as the first one. Saturday, April the 26th, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. These two will square off. Eubank Jr. against Benn. We cannot wait. Thanks very much for your company, Matt. Sonny, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Take it easy. We will catch you next time.